Hello, this is the lecture for Ancient and Medieval History for Wednesday, the 16th of March, 2022, the day before St. Patrick's Day.
Tomorrow's St. Patrick's Day, that means.
Yes, yes it is.
No, wait,
You get to have green food. Please have your notes out.
What? Why would we want green? I just don't.
Green eggs and ham.
Because Ireland, that's why.
Yeah, they did that for us, and I threw it away.
That's funny.
And the tray.
Because green eggs and ham is more Dr. Seuss than Irish.
I don't.
But
Green
hey.
eggs and ham?
Yeah, I think that's.
I didn't want green eggs when I was in elementary, so I grabbed the tray and just threw it down.
That was a reasonable response.
It was.
Okay. Old enough to know better, I think, is the answer.
7.
I was hoping
Yeah,
he was going to say
definitely
12 or
old
something.
enough to know better.
It was like 2 days ago, man.
If you want to understand a person, if you want to get to know them, make them angry. Because when they're angry, you will see the real person. If you have somebody who's prideful about their intellect, play them in chess and beat them and see how they act.
I played against ours.
See how they act. If they are vicious and desperate in the game, well, it shows they've got some strength and some fighting spirit. If they just give up, it shows that they are, well, they're more interested in other things. But if they start playing games with you, like, I'm distracted, the phone keeps ringing, I've got homework I've got to do, my mind's on other things, it's obviously not that you beat me, I just obviously had a bad day. Well, you learn something about them too. I've played all sorts of people in chess and other things, and some people reveal a good character and some don't.
Have you ever played cheating chess?
Cheating chess. Go ahead and explain that.
So, basically, if you can get someone to look away and move a couple of your pieces around without them catching you, and you can explain what happened in a logical sense, you can get away with it.
Yeah, that's head game stuff. No, I wouldn't do that. I will admit that in college, there were times when my friends and I were so bored that we invented variants of chess where we had, what was it? The queen was replaced by the general because the general could do all the moves a queen could plus the moves a knight could, which queens normally can't. And sometimes we would have 8 generals versus 8 generals just to see it. It was stupid, but we were tired and
chaotic.
under stress. Oh, it's very,
They call it
very chaotic. Basically, it was kill.
Yeah.
It's like, you know how kids play dodgeball?
Yeah.
Well, my neighborhood was so tough, we played kill ball.
Oh, that's
I mean,
awesome.
we got to throw it really hard and try to hit them in the vitals or something. Yes.
My favorite thing about cheating chess is what my brother did.
Yeah.
Like, my pawn has become Jesus because Jesus was lonely and not very good, and then he became. And I was like, well,
Oh, so you queened it.
guess what?
Okay.
I am King Herod. My king is King Herod, and he put your Jesus to death. And he had to get rid of it because it made sense.
That's clever. Okay. I can see the fun there.
Pawn?
Oh, that's
With a little
good.
piece of
No,
plastic.
I have no answer to that. George,
Have you ever played Stratego?
long ago.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you set up, you know, you have to set up all the pieces.
Yeah, and you've got 2 lakes. And,
Yeah, and then you never know, like, what your opponent has. So
Yeah.
apparently my uncle, when playing against any of his family members, he would say, I gotta go get water, and they would always play in the same place. And then he would insist on being sitting on like one side of the table, and he'd get up, and then when he would go get water, he'd be at a perfect angle to see where like all of their bombs were and stuff, and then where all of where like what number of their troops were, and so he'd just win every time.
You pull that stuff in poker, and they'll put you in a hole somewhere. Don't ever do that with serious people gaming. Maybe he just wanted to keep you guessing or something. I mean, dads do this sometimes to their sons. They cheat after a while just to keep winning against their sons, to keep them fighting. But I'm telling you, you pull that stuff with adults, it gets nasty fast.
Yeah, at my old house in the dining room, there was a window on this side, and on this side there was a china cabinet with mirrors in the back.
Oh, that's funny.
You play at night, so there would be 2 basically 2 mirrors. I'd sit right where I can see both of them.
Did anyone else figure this out?
Yeah, my
Okay.
brother did it too.
So you just-
fighting.
I mean, you can play games like show a false hand or something, but that gets really complicated.
And then, like, if you play spoons, like, it gets super aggressive.
Oh,
Like, apparently, someone I know said that, like, if you get the first hand, and then what you can do is you can grab a spoon and then just slam your hand down as hard as you can on another one, just pop one across the room.
Oh wow.
And then just chaos ensues.
Yeah. Why not just at this point have chess, but when the pieces come in, it's like the Star Wars movie where they fight, except you have to fight. So, pawn takes knight. Really? Let's go. Bam! Boom! That's real chess.
That was just so
It's chess with
Chess
a
for
little
men.
bit of liver failing.
Exactly. Okay. So, all this stuff we've learned about Rome is about to burn and be replaced by something that's called Rome, but it's basically completely alien. The crisis of the 3rd century is also known as the military anarchy, the time of the barracks emperors. It is a time when the way to the imperium is by winning a civil war or by assassinating your predecessor. Violence is the way to power. Senate, to the extent the Senate even continues to exist, basically shuts up and does what it's told because otherwise they'll get killed. There's no subtlety. There's no pretense. There's no empire with republican forms. It's full-out military dictatorship, and it's not stable. Now, the Pax Romana ends in 193 when Pertinax wins the auction on the palace steps and buys the Imperium. But that just starts a civil war. From 193 to 230 is this transition period that I told you about. The Civil War, the Severi, Heliogabalus and his sun cult, all that stuff. The crisis begins in earnest in the year 230. Are you okay? Do I want to know?
Yeah, no.
Deal with it. Please. 230. Nice little Alexander Severus. Blaming you. Nice little Alexander Severus goes to the front on the Rhine frontier because the Germans are restive, and says to his general Maximinus Thraxus, "I'm here to make peace with our German brothers." Whereupon Maximinus says, "Come with me, my lord. I have to show you something." 10 flaps closed. Boom! Boom! Die! Oh, Emperor is dead.
You play chess.
Hail, Imperator Maximinus Thraxus. So, Maximinus becomes the emperor literally by murdering his predecessor with his bare hands. And the armies of the Rhine are behind him. Now, here's a basic reality. The armies of the Rhine are big, bigger than the armies in Britain. The armies on the Danube and in Dacia are bigger than the armies on the Rhine. The armies in the east, facing Parthia and later Persia, are bigger than the armies on the Danube. So whenever Rome has a straightforward civil war, somebody gets control of Italy, then somebody on the Rhine marches to Italy and takes over, then somebody on the Danube marches to Italy and takes over, and then finally the guy who commands the biggest armies in the east takes over. Ah, fooled you. Thank you, Dan. So, that's usually how it goes. So, Maximinus Thraxus becomes emperor. And he's that brutal-looking guy, because he was a brutal-looking guy. He was a professional wrestler when it wasn't fake. He was a professional fighter who killed people in the ring. That's pretty real. You don't have many people genuinely faking their own death, because if they come back, people will notice. Hey, aren't you dead? I got better. So Monty Python joke. So, if Maximinus Thraxus, that giant Thracian oaf, can become emperor by an act of violence, the other generals of the other commanders of army groups say, well, why not me? So, Maximinus marches to Italy, and then a couple of Gordian brothers decide, actually there were 3 of them in the end, decide they're going to take over, and they march in. And what this begins is a 50-year civil war. See, 50, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. A 50-year civil war. Now, there are breaks in the war, there are moments of peace, there are islands of stability in the sea of chaos, but in general terms, it is a bleeping, unmitigated disaster. Now, let me preface. By the 3rd century, the Germans have learned a lot from the Romans. They've become organized into larger tribes, but there's a problem the Germans have. The problem is the Goths. Now, the Goths come from Sweden. They're bigger than the Germans. They're more violent than the Germans. They're like super Germans. These are not vampire wannabe, purple-haired, black-wearing high school students with too many tattoos and body piercings. Not that kind of Goth. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You did make fun of them a little bit. Yeah, because they're funny. I'm sorry, it is. It's just, I'm a moody teen. Oh, okay. Good for you. Enjoy that. It's fun. I've been with.
Go get a face tattoo now.
Oh, God.
Well.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's great. So that when you're 30 and looking for a real job, you'll have to explain why you have a giant Satan swallowing your left eye with, his claws.
It wasn't me, man. I didn't do it.
Yeah, swallowing it with his claws. Because he's Satan, he can have a mouth in his hand, right? Are you going to say he can't? In any event, otherwise known as a mouth tentacle, which are pretty creepy. And anyway, what did we learn today? I learned about mouth tentacles and hand mouths in history class. Anyway, with the arrival of the Goths, the threat on the northern frontier doubles. So the Rhine and the Danube have twice the threat level that it used to, maybe even a little more, because the Goths are much, much, much tougher than the Germans. But that's not all. Because in the years from when Heliogabalus was experimenting with being a transvestite emperor in Rome up to Alexander Severus's death, the Parthian Empire is conquered by a new Persian Empire. Now, the original Persian Empire of Darius and Xerxes and Cyrus, they were called Achaemenids. And I used to say that when I was talking about them, the Achaemenid Empire. And that's because of the grandfather of Cyrus. It's named after a paternal forebear. This new empire, the Neo-Persian Empire, are called Sassanids. And I believe it's in your notes, but if not, it's Sassanids. We got Goths, and we got Sassanids. From Sassan, who's like the grandfather of the founder of the Sassanid. Now, Sassanid king Ardashir, or Artaxerxes, conquers Parthia. You think, big deal. Rome's had an eastern neighbor for a while. They control the Middle East. They're strong, but they're not as strong as Rome. That was true of Parthia. Not of Persia, the new Persian Empire. The new Persian Empire, first of all, is built on the core of a military with a new unit called, no, not giggle giggle, cataphracts. Cataphracts. Now, what a cataphract is is a horse soldier who has heavy armor on the horse and on himself. In other words, he's the predecessor to an armored knight. Now, it's sometime during the Sassanid period that the Persians get a hold of stirrups. Not right away, not during the 3rd century, but eventually, which is going to make the cataphract-type soldier even stronger. But if you're a Roman of the old imperial legions before these civil wars, and you had armored knights basically charging on you, you might be able to handle it. But the Roman army is going to change during this 50-year civil war. They're not going to be the highly skilled, disciplined, courageous legions of Augustus or Marcus Aurelius. No. They're more like a bunch of guys with guns, with weapons. More things that world. So the cataphracts are a big deal for the Sassanids. But that's not all. Because the Sassanids are huge into Zoroastrianism. They revived the state church of Zoroaster. And so, in order to be a loyal citizen of the Persian Empire, subject of the Persian Empire, you have to, whether you believe in the Zoroastrian faith or not, pay for the church and the state. You have to take part in patriotic rituals. Now, pagans can do that. A person who believes in 50 gods doesn't really have a fundamental problem with worshiping another 2, even if those 2 claim to be the only gods. Remember, Zoroastrianism is a dualistic religion. There's Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Light, and Angra Mainyu, the Lord of Dark. So those are the only gods, and when they meet, the universe is created, but it's an unstable explosion, and ultimately our choices will tilt the universe into ultimate light or ultimate darkness. That religion, that church, is going to strengthen the Persian government. A person who's loyal to the government is also faithful to the gods. A person who's disloyal is also guilty of sacrilege. Now, all monarchies are a little bit religious, but the unity of church and state in Persia is going to really impress the Romans. What this means is that the threat on the eastern frontier, where's a nice big red, there we go, doesn't double. No. It's about 5 times the threat that it used to be. 5 times. The Persians are stronger than the Parthians in every way. Their economy is stronger, their military is stronger, their church-state relationship is stronger, and they're more ambitious. Ardashir and Shapur, his successor, they don't just want to hold on to their core regions. They want to conquer everything that old Persia used to control, sort of like Putin and the old Soviet Union. The ambition to control what used to be is going to lead the Persians not just to defend themselves against Rome, but to attack Syria, Judea, Egypt, Asia Minor, to try to get all those areas back the way they were before the Greek and Persian wars. And this is all before Maximinus Thraxus throttles Alexander Severus. So what this is going to mean is, at the very moment, at precisely the time, at exactly the instant, when the threat on the north doubles, and in the east quintuples, Rome's armies will leave the frontier again and again and again and again and again to fight a series of practically endless civil wars. Oh, what bad timing! It never rains, but it pours. The people die, they usually die in 3s. If you look at your life, you may see that pattern. That's an old wives' tale, but there's some truth behind it. And crises usually don't come one at a time. Crises usually come in batches. One crisis tends to destabilize things and lead to the potential for other crises. Not that that would ever happen. COVID, inflation, fuel costs, war.
2020.
There you go. You're seeing it.
Wow.
By the way, it was a lot more fun to talk to students before this period, when this was all theoretical, and they were going, "Oh, Mr. Tenorio, you're just exaggerating." No, I wasn't, unfortunately. But people just need to see it themselves sometimes. What's that thing on the stove? It's fire! Ah!
God, I love flyers.
You did that reminds
Dan, don't admit this publicly. Okay, there people in white coats may come and visit you.
Controlled.
Okay. That's
Wait,
much
wait.
better.
Can you explain this?
I like
No,
No, I can't, George. That
because
is
he's on
Yeah.
record. There's a microphone picking up every single word.
Yeah, and?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, we have cell phones in the room. They're always.
Oh,
That's
so
true.
cool.
That's true. Where's the aluminum foil hat? So this is bad, and this giant cluster mess is gonna characterize the crisis because it goes from bad to worse to worse to worse. And some idiot somewhere does the thing that you say in a horror movie when you really want the psycho killer monster from Cthulhu space to kill you, which is, well, at least it can't get any worse. Don't ever say that. That's like, let's split up and search the house. Or we're in a slasher movie. We're teenagers and we're unmarried, so let's go and have relations. Because that won't trigger a psychopathic killer to kill us first. It always does. You see any of the old slasher movies that don't ever do that because you're going to die.
I'm going to the locker.
Well, who's dropped off on my desk? So, let's talk about this. Oh, and it ends in 285, so it ends before the end of the 3rd century, but still. Now, the title of the ruler is still imperator. Because this is such a militaristic phase, the military title of commander, which is basically what imperator means, he who commands, is logical. These are the barracks emperors. Now, a barracks is where soldiers live. If you have troops living somewhere, they live in a barracks. Now, barracks can be anything from shacks to tent cities to Fort Hood, which is a giant city run by the U.S. Army down in Texas. Fort Hood is a massive military base. I believe there are tens of thousands of soldiers who live there. Back in the Cold War, we didn't do that. We never had bases as large as Fort Hood. What we did is we dispersed our troops. Why? Because the threat of nuclear attack. But I guess after the Cold War, we just stopped worrying about it. In any event, the barracks emperors are the emperors that come from the army. Maximinus Thraxus is the first. Again, this is a man of massive muscles, a massive muscle man, who, if you've ever seen anyone with massive muscles, they do this with their arms. Why? Because they can't put their arms straight at their sides because of all the muscles in the way. They've got to stand like this. Trust me. If you don't, meet somebody who's like that. They're all bulgy. In any event, Thraxus rules for 2 or 3 years. He goes to Rome, he intimidates the Senate, he bullies them, basically. This is a man who enjoys bullying people. Why? Because he's 6.5 feet tall, at a time when most Romans are between 5 and 5.5 feet. I mean the men. The women are about a foot shorter than that. So we're talking a real giant among midgets. And so, yes, you do what I say. Or I pick you up and smack you together. But eventually, not that long, another army comes into Italy, defeats Maximinus, he's killed. And this begins the uncutest puppy fight ever. Puppy fight.
Don't feel like how puppies fight.
That's true. Because puppies, when they're fiercest, sound exactly like turkeys. Listen for it next time.
They did.
No, you've got this giant roiling mass of armies attacking one another. Now, among the Gordians, there's an old Roman general senator, very well respected, very straight-laced, named Decius. And Decius believes that he's got to restore the Roman Empire. Yeah, he's got to restore the Roman Empire, which is a good goal if you're a Roman and imperial. So he wins a series of civil wars and becomes the emperor. Decius concludes that the way we need to get back to our former selves is to have some of that old-time religion. Going to get that old-time religion. And for a Roman, the old-time religion is non-Christian. Oh, you have good. Non-Christian paganism.
What?
Non-Christian paganism. So Decius sponsors the first empire-wide persecution of Christians. That's hardcore. Because Decius says one of the reasons why we are so messed up, and he doesn't use the word messed up. He's an adult. He's a soldier. He uses more salty language than that. But I'm translating from the army Latin. The reason that we are so messed up is because these damn Christians have offended the patriotic gods. They're sapping our will to fight with their pacifism. Their eyes are on another world, so they've neglected this world. They don't pay their respects to the gods, so the gods are punishing us. As long as we abide the Christians, we're going to suffer. So, we're going to rebuild Rome, we're going to rebuild her armies, we're going to rebuild her government, we're going to rebuild her morals, and we're going to do this in large part by killing as many Christians as we can. There's a line in the Old Testament of the Holy Bible. It says to the Jews, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." Well, Decius basically takes that spirit on, but he replaces the term witch with Christian. And it's nasty. The Christian faith has had persecutions here and there, but it's usually been a province. You know, you get a governor who gets a buzz in his ear about how Christians are causing troubles. But it's a local problem. You can leave. The thing about the Roman Empire, the thing about any one world government, and this is basically a one world government, is what's the alternative if you don't like it in Rome, in the Roman Empire? What, you're going to live like a savage in the German forest, or you're going to go to the desert? You're going to suddenly learn how to breathe water and go into the ocean, or you'll live among the barbarian Celts, or you'll go to Persia and live under the strict rule of the Zoroastrian Church and their government. There aren't options. This is the problem, by the way, with people in this country who don't like federalism. Federalism is the idea that different states have different policies. I am a federalist. I don't have a problem with California being super liberal. I have a problem with people from California going to Washington, D.C. and trying to make the entire country super liberal. That bugs me. I have no problem with Washington and Idaho being fundamentally different in many, many ways because federalism.
Isn't that democratic republicanism? It's like the opposite of federalism, and federalism is like where all the laws are the same at a government level.
Okay, you are speaking of the early political parties of the American Republic, where federalism was basically the big government party.
Right, yeah.
Have Hamilton and John Adams, and Democratic Republicanism were the little farmer party of Thomas Jefferson. That's not what I mean.
So it like shifted?
Well, no, it doesn't shift. The Federalists died out. We were a one-party dictatorship under Andrew Jackson. The Democratic Republican Party basically was the only political party in the country. We were like a third world dictatorship at that point. We went through that phase. And then we got the Whig Party to fight the Democrats, and the Whig Party fell apart. And then we got the Republican Party. You know why? Republican Party was set up as the abolitionist party to fight slavery. So I'm not speaking here of the political parties. That's good, though. I'm impressed by your knowledge. The principle of federalism is something that our founding fathers built into the Constitution. And the idea is that the federal government the national government should only do a few things. Those are listed in the Constitution. Everything else is left to the states or the people, respectively. And this is because Virginia didn't want to have the laws of Massachusetts, which didn't want to have the laws of Georgia, which didn't want to have the laws of New York. So we allow a great degree of heterodoxy within the country. Anyway, I know that had something to do with this. Ah, yeah, one world government. In the case of the Roman Empire, there is no alternative. If you have a federal republic with real differences between the states, you can move if you don't like where you are. You can't do that if there's no alternative other than living like a savage, or living under Persian rule. And neither of those were particularly appealing to the Romans. No baths, first of all, except in Persia. But anywho, so Decius tries his moral crusade, and then he gets killed because everyone is backstabbing. I believe, I could be wrong, that Decius gets killed by his praetorian prefect, a man named Gallienus, who is most famous for having a bronze statue of himself naked but holding a towel. It's a good statue. But both Decius and Gallienus begin to show a characteristic look. Let's see if I included any of their pictures. No, I didn't. Okay, well, the guys end up looking more and more and more austere and strict, as if the world is becoming darker and more dangerous. And so they scowl in their statues more and more. They're not neutral, they're not serious, they're literally to the world, because the world is so tough. They've got to be tougher. So Decius is dead. Gallienus takes her. Oh, no, it's not Gallienus. It's a guy named Trebonius Gallus, and he's the guy with the bronze statue. Anyway, Trebonius Gallus gets killed by Philip the Arab, his praetorian prefect. Now, Philip the Arab is important for two reasons. One, he's Arab. Two, and he's got a really big nose in his statues. He also has some really good-looking statues. He does! It's not my fault. I didn't make it happen. I'm not saying every Arab does. But he did. But Philip the Arab is the emperor during the 1000th anniversary of the founding of Rome. So remember, 753 BC is 1 AUC, Orbis Condita. So Philip the Arab is there for the 1000th anniversary, the millennial anniversary of Rome. And he hosts a set of celebratory games that are almost as big as the ones Commodus did during the height of the Pax Romana. He has giraffes, hippopotami, tigers from India, different kinds of elephants, North African elephants and Indian elephants. North African elephants don't exist anymore. They're the Carthaginian elephants. They're small like Indian elephants, but more aggressive. In any event, he's got these 1000-year games, and it's like, we are building a new Rome, and 1,000 years and going. You know, we're just going to go. Let's do it for another 1,000 years. And a year or two later, he's dead, and a guy named Valerian takes over. Okay. Valerian is at the end of the early phase of the crisis, where you have civil wars resulting in new emperors for the entire country. But then, during Valerian's time, Gaul and Britain break away, and sometimes parts of Spain, under a guy named Posthumous. Posthumous takes the western provinces of the empire and makes his own country. Posthumous is not trying to become the emperor of all of Rome, because he'll lose. He knows it. But he calculates that by becoming the emperor of Gaul and the areas around Gaul, like northern Spain and southern Britain, he can rule. And he'll do a better job than some guy in Italy or in the East. Oh, you don't have to do this. This is just temporary. Thanks, though. Because he's got a much more manageable chunk of territory and population. He, because he's more local, can do a better job for the people of the localities. So the Western Empire breaks away. Also, during Valerian's time, the Persians invade under their most successful and aggressive ruler, the great king Shapur I. So the Persians invade. And suddenly Syria and the entire Roman East look like they're going to come under Persian rule. But then, surprise, out of nowhere, the local king of a place called Palmyrene, which is basically in Syria, decides he's going to fight the Persians without waiting for Rome to say so. And Odenathus of Palmyra cuts Shapur's army to pieces and drives him back a little east. But then Odenathus takes over the east. And then he dies. Is it his wife? I think it's his wife. Might be his daughter, but I think it's his wife. Odenathus' wife, Zenobia, becomes queen of Palmyra. She's a strong, independent woman who rules the wealthiest part of the Roman Empire for many years. She's strong enough to keep the rest of the Roman Empire at bay and to keep the Persians at bay, just like Odenathus was. Actually, I told it a little out of order. As Odenathus begins to fight, he doesn't immediately declare his independence because Valerian is marching east and sailing east with the Roman army to meet Shapur. So Odenathus hasn't declared for kingship yet. He's just fighting the Persians. Valerian arrives, Odenathus helps him, and Valerian invades Persia. Let me tell you how that goes. Please shut the right light switch off.
That's you, Nathan.
He's got it all planned out, Nathan. He does. Okay. First of all, I will show you a few of these guys.
Okay.
He was. Not old yet. Yep. Okay. So, here,
Please don't show us.
I'm going to show you.
No, not.
Yes, he's old,
That
Dan.
was fine.
He's old!
It's not the other one.
That's not the bronze one.
That's not the bronze one.
So, that's Decius, the one who believed that Christianity was the problem.
Big forehead.
Now, actually, this is a better picture. It doesn't have Alme written all over it. So, same statue. Look at that ear.
Wow.
Great.
He is the emperor. And he's got this faraway look in his eyes. So there's Decius. Now, I wasn't going to, but since it was requested.
No.
No.
I can't read. Look away.
Trebonius Gallus. Okay. Let's see. Tools. Yeah. If he can't see you, you can't see him. Just keep telling yourselves that.
All right.
I'm not going to show you the lower body. There's Gallus.
Why is it good?
He's a tough guy. Well, because he's all muscled. Okay. Emperor Philip the Arab.
Head looks like a thumb.
He looks like a thumb.
I think that guy used
Okay. So when I tell you that he had a very cool statue, he also had this weird cloak on, apparently. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Whoa.
For whatever, I don't know what this is, but it's something there. Anyway, Philip the Arab. I told you. I told you about the nose. There it is.
It's not even
Looks like Mr. Wood.
I know it's
No, it does.
No, because that's a really big statue. Now we have Valerian.
No, Mr. Wood.
Oh, good to see
And
you.
this is going to give you a hint as to how things end
Not your. I'm not talking.
in his campaign in the East.
Close.
A lot of the Romans do.
Or the
Okay.
elder Roman
because
Empire.
they're Italian.
Yeah. Okay, so stop. No, that's not big enough. You gotta see it.
Just zoom
All
in.
of its horrible.
Do Control Plus. I'll zoom in.
Let's get to that. Okay. So, how did things turn out for Valerian? Well, this is on a mountainside in Persia.
Thank you.
There.
So,
This is King Shapur I with his mural crone that has a balloon on it.
Oh.
Because balloons in those days were incredibly rare and cool.
They still are.
They still are.
They
Stop that.
still are.
So, King Shapur of Persia is bestride his horse, no stirrups, wearing trousers, because those barbarians wore trousers rather than tunics. And he's got his mural crown with the big balloon thing on it. Then we got Valerian, who is the only Roman emperor ever to be captured by his enemies alive. In all of Rome's history, never before or since. And there's a reason for this. So who do you think won? I mean, look at the body language. I know it's subtle.
The guy with
Is the guy on his knees or the guy on the horse triumphant?
It's the guy in the background on the right.
Yeah. No, he's going, yeah, Shapur!
Is he stuck in thermite, like in stone?
That's funny. That's good. It's called a bas relief. Sheet maker. Anyway, Valerian, unfortunately for him, gets captured alive. And Shapur accepts his surrender and then brings him to his palace, where he has Valerian in the front hallway, where everyone who visits can come. And at first, they can throw things at him like fruit and rocks, but not the face. They want to keep the face. And then they kill him slowly. They take out all the parts and they stuff him like a taxidermy animal.
I'm sorry.
They take Valerian and they stuff him like a museum exhibit,
Does
like a taxidermy
Does
animal.
the taxidermy still exist?
Yeah, it existed back then. It wasn't very good because this taxidermy Roman emperor only lasted about a century or so, and then it rotted and fell apart. But for that century, anyone visiting the Persian palace could see this is the Roman emperor we captured. This is not a good fate. Don't get captured by your enemies, tortured for years, die, and then get stuffed. When somebody tells you to get stuffed, say, no, thank you. I've thought about it, and I've decided this is not what I want. Yes.
Isn't that like a Roald Dahl story? Like, there's like an innkeeper and then she like kills people with cyanide, taxidermies them or something?
It may very well be. It may very well be.
I think that's an actual story.
Well, look, there's the story of the Procrustes in Theseus. With the Procrustean bed. Again, it's basically be suspicious about your host.
Yeah.
But this is not a be suspicious about your host. This is if you're going to go fight the Persians, either win or die. Or retreat. Don't get captured alive. So where we will leave it is that Valerian's son Gallienus, who survives, goes back and says, "Well, my father's a lost cause. I'm the emperor now," and we will leave it at Emperor Gallienus.
What is
How do you know come from?
Straw,
Oh,
little bits of straw. Any questions, comments, or thoughts?
you know when you get that
And
itch
then,
on the
you know,
inside
my
of you?
dad.
That's how you fix it.
Oh God, that's awful. That's truly horrible.
I feel like that's
Just stop it.
Thank you. Come again.
Yeah.